All right. Looks like we are live. Welcome, everyone, to our book study group for Monday, the 8th of November, 2021. John Lavenia here with you and Bob and Missy and Catherine and Janet and Lindsay and Stuart. It's good to see you all. Catherine, hope you're doing well. I see your cat, but I don't see you. In any event, we are on the fourth law tonight, right? The fourth law of developing habits, and that is to make it satisfying. And I thought of all of you as I was reading these chapters, 15, 16, and 17, making it satisfying. I had some great reminders as I went through this, because like, yeah, I do that. Oh, that's something I could do. When I got to the accountability rep part, the part where you contract with yourself and with others, that was the part where I was like, yeah, I've done that lately, but not so much lately. And so wondering what you guys think about all this, making it satisfying, the cardinal rule of behavior change, which I thought was really awesome. Who's got some thoughts on all this? Bob and Missy, thanks for getting us started.
I have no thoughts left in my brain. It's all full. I'm still working on the other one. I got to make the bad ones disappear and be
Well, it boils down to what my father always used to say. And that was, you're only going to do what you like. And so if you don't like something, simply aren't going to do it. If you want to do something, you got to make it enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
Mary Poppins, the musical. In every job that must be done, there is an element of fun.
so find the fun and
Snap, the job's a game. So it's all an attitudinal shift, essentially. And of course, things had to be done. The story of Stephen Luby, who went to Pakistan and got personal hygiene and cleanliness on an upswing simply because he said, wash your hands, but use soap. And this soap smells good and it makes lots of suds. So he got all the senses, the tactile, the visual, the olfactory, everything was working in his favor. But more importantly to me in this chapter, the first chapter, was the fact that delayed gratification is something, particularly in our day and age, that is antithetical to our nature. In a more disciplined era, people knew that you undergo the pain and the gain is not going to be immediate. You're not going to get your immediate gratification. And that's one of the things that makes life very, very difficult in this accelerated age in which we live. We expect, we're just a mouse click away from getting the shiny object. We're just, a few keystrokes away from buying that which, we had to go out and do all kinds of comparison shopping. We have to rewire ourselves. Those of us who are living in this year of 2021, about to become 2022, we have to rewire ourselves and get ourselves back to the notion that I'm not going to get things right away. I'm going to get them only after a great deal of effort and a great deal of focus. So that to me was the takeaway from the first chapter. The takeaway from the second chapter that I really liked was stay with it. Stay with it. That we're only human. We are not disciplined by nature. We are going to fall, but you have to get yourself back up. And don't let 2 days go without making your habits change. So that I'm a big believer in You do things incrementally, you do things slowly, you build up. You aren't going to get things by quantum leaps. It's only going to be by painstaking and laborious effort. And sometimes you have to destroy what you've done to start afresh because you find that you're on the wrong path. And that takes guts. It takes a lot of honesty. That's not in the book, but that was my main takeaway was you gotta stay with it. It may not look attractive, but it's going to be attractive.
Mm. You know, there was something in this chapter which reminded me of something you said, Bob, a couple of weeks ago, is that the means become the ends, or something like that, where people, they get their, what did he say in the book? He said, the human mind wants to win whatever game is being played.
Mm.
So if it's just about, you know, doing these actions for the sake of doing the actions, wrong target, or, you know, like losing track of like the actual purpose behind it. Anyway, it reminded me of something that you mentioned the other day.
That an economist, I can't remember which chapter this was. I thought it was the second chapter. It said that when you become so focused on the means that you have established to get to the end, then you have gone off the track. Because then the means has become the end and you've lost sight of why you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're just doing things for the sake of doing them, just so you can check something off the list. So that's, yeah, I fall into that trap many, many times.
I see.
Many times.
Well, you know, Missy was talking about breaking habits, and of course, chapter 17 covered that. So if we can make something satisfying, the, you know, inverse of that would be make it, you know, unsatisfying. And what did he say about, you know, this whole cardinal rule of behavior change is what is rewarded is repeated, what is punished is avoided. Now he peppered that a bit with immediately rewarded and immediately punished, right? And so, not that we're looking for like a pain drive or, you know, negative reinforcement, but the idea of, you know, if you, in fact, I heard this from a friend where he was disciplining his child. And when the child did, you know, the erroneous action or whatever, they immediately got the ramifications of that. There was no Q&A about it or anything. And he likened it to gravity. And so if you violate the law of gravity, let's say you jump off the building or whatever, you have immediate consequences for that. And there's nothing personal about it, but you learn quicker. All of us know not to, you know, jump off of buildings. Okay. But the whole idea of instant gratification, I thought was interesting because certainly we've all seen this, and, you know, it takes energy to expend energy, right? So I would like a path of least resistance. But I also have enough intelligence, and maybe this is what it takes, enough intelligence to defer or delay gratification because we're seeing a bigger picture. If it's just, you know, always the rat looking for cheese, well, it's the rat looking for cheese, right? That's it. And in society, and I know it's easy to get critical. For me, it is. It's easy to be critical of modern debauchery and, you know, the stuff that we see, you know, going on, you know, if you care to look. But I think for any civilization to prosper in the long range, you would have to have a certain amount of IQ, a certain amount of intelligence and morality, right? I don't think there could have ever been like a United States, for example, without, you know, principles based on, you know, morality and you know, in this case, you know, it was a lot of Christians. And on the other hand, you've also got people who had the intelligence to observe, well, here's what's happened throughout history. Therefore, let us define what constitutes this union, this, you know, and so there's the Constitution and all that. So these were moral and intelligent people. If you break it down now into the micro sense, here's the farmer. So the farmer is intelligent enough to know that instead of instant gratification, they need to put away their seed crop, right? Otherwise, they have no crops next year. So we have to be smart enough, right, to not eat all of the grain, that we have to put some away for next season. Where has that been lost? In, could we say, a plurality or a majority of people? If the rewards, if the carrot is simply, getting a moment of fame on social media, where people, they think your TikTok video is funny, or I don't know what motivates most people these days. I can tell you that in my assessment, the moral scene has declined, and the intelligence or wisdom, we could say, scene has declined, in my assessment. I know that may sound critical, but you know what? I wasn't the first guy to notice this. H.L. Mencken said, no one ever went broke underestimating the average intelligence of the American public.
The stupidity, right? The stupidity.
Right.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? Well, I guess if we're in marketing, which I think all of us here are engaged entrepreneurially in some way, so that means you're putting something out there into the marketplace. Does that mean dumb it down? I guess it could mean dumb it down. I have a hard time with that, because I mean, what do I sell, right? I have, books and my consulting work and coaching and stuff like that. I don't dumb it down. In fact, I look at how can I come up with nuance and ways to, explain things in a way that people can use them more fully. But that's definitely not dumbing it down. That's just finding ways to apply principles into life. And what we're discussing here in these 3 chapters is the idea that it must occur as satisfying now, not just deferred gratification, but now it must occur. These things, these resourceful things that we're doing, they must occur as satisfying now. He gives us some ideas to engage with that, right? He mentioned even if it's just the acknowledgement, because I mean, how many people could use a little bit more self-esteem, right? Just the acknowledgement of, I took the paper clips from this jar and I put it into that jar because I did my 125 cold calls today, right? He gave the example of the guy that, the stockbroker guy. Okay. And then he became a success in that firm, and then wound up getting, even higher opportunities. But that was pleasing to him. He developed a habit. It was satisfying for him to see the transfer of those paper clips from one jar to the other, because he was an on-purpose person. He acted with integrity. And each day he did that. And of course it was habitual. Made a call, move the paperclip, make a call, move a paperclip. Next thing you know, calls are done, money is earned. And look at that immediate reward. I see that jar filling up, the done jar, right? And the not done jar emptying out. Missy, you had a thought?
Well, I just want to say with the dumbing down, years ago in the late 80s, I was in my, what was I in the 80s? In the 30s, my 30s. And I could see what was happening. And I did this. I wrote to the New York State's, those SAT people, and I got copies of the SATs going back from the beginning. And up till I graduated in high school in 76. And of course, I'm in the class of 76. I'm a patriot. So, and when I looked at it, you could see every 5 years. And so I think I started in 1900 or 80, some kind of standardized testing. It was frightening. By the time I got to the 70s, we were done. And now I have a store on it. We have a store on Etsy. And in the instructions, they tell you there's a description for whatever your product is. And it says, make sure you don't write past a 4th grade level. I can't do that. I cannot, I'll probably lose customers. I can't do that. I cannot participate in the dumbing, the stupidizing of the United States of America. If we get any dumber, we're going to fall off the planet. It'll become flat. We'll walk off the edge. I don't know that's literally what they say. Please do not write over a 4th grade level. Isn't that frightening? Or is it just me?
Well, have you heard of Hemingway app? This is the second time this came up today. Hemingway app?
No.
HemingwayApp.com. You could take your copy, your sales copy, your letter, your whatever it is that you've written. You just copy it off of whatever document you wrote it on, paste it into Hemingway app, and it will analyze it for big words, grammar that might be a little bit hard to read for some people, or it'll give you suggestions on how to, break up that sentence into two, use smaller words there, and it'll show you actually the grade and intelligence level of what you wrote, and then we'll give you like ways to not dumb it down in terms of the meaning of it, but to make it more readable for the the guideline for modern copywriting is 7th grade, which might be pushing it a bit. You're saying 4th grade, but definitely if you go past like 7th grade reading level, you're losing like most people. I could read it and I'd probably enjoy it, right? It's great. We read Dorothea Brand, Wake Up and Live. That was not 4th or 7th grade. That was collegiate level, that was scholarly right there. But don't write, that's not sales copy, right? That's not sales copy. So Hemingway app, if you want to, a free way to make your stuff more readable by the masses. Yeah.
It's frightening. I just don't, I mean, I'm not selling to 4th graders. Why would we want to have a 4th grade?
Well,
I don't understand it.
nobody ever went broke underestimating the intelligence of the public, right? So, I mean, you could be right or you could be rich. So,
well, George M. Cohan wrote no, I'd rather be right than be president, but
It's Henry Clay.
Henry Clay, of course he
Clay's still right,
knows, of
yes.
course.
yeah. So we're talking about creating habits here, though, right? And making it attractive. Here's my thoughts, and then let's hear from Janet. My thought is anything I could do to make it not attractive, but satisfying is the 4th law. Make it satisfying. So anything I could do to experience immediate reward, even if it's subtle, it's still recognizable by me. Great. And if I want to induce another, let's say, for example, my daughter, to get into a habit of doing, right actions and discipline kind of stuff. Well, is there a way that I can make it immediately rewarding? Does that mean I have to take her for ice cream as soon as she's done cleaning her room every single time she cleans a room? No, that might be a bit much, right? I don't know. What do you think, Janet? You've got experience with this.
Ice cream is always good.
Yeah.
Sorry. I think, I think when they wrote that, do not write above a 4th grade level, whatever, I think that they were talking to 4th graders. I think, more is that you make things understandable. Does that mean it's 4th grade? Does that mean it's 10th grade? Who knows? But it's to make it understandable and to work with passion. I think that's where it is. And I put my little thing in Facebook the other day for our anniversary, and several comments came back. I liked your story.
Ah,
And we've talked about that, John, that story sells, right? And I forget the quote, you can remind us, but I'm just thinking, make it understandable, make it friendly, make it nice. You don't have to be, when I'm reading things at my college or super college level, that's one other thing. But you know what? I don't want to have to work so hard when I'm out to buy something. I just want to know it's going to be nice and enjoyable and I'm going to like it. I don't need to have a college level for that. So I think that's perhaps the thing, is just make it, not dumb it down. That, that leaves a bad taste in my mouth.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that puts me superior to other people. Excuse me.
you are.
But just to be open, be friendly, be giving. That I like all of those words much more than dumb it down. And I think perhaps the result might even be better. Just a thought.
Fantastic. Thank you. Who else has some thoughts on all this?
Stuart, I'm crying.
I got some thoughts.
Yeah.
First of all, this morning when you were talking about Hemingway app, of course, I went there right away. I saw that they had a desktop app that you can download, but also just the free version on the web. And the first thing that I noticed, because I started messing around with it, threw some copy in there just to see what it would do. And I'm sure you know this, on the bottom right-hand corner, it actually tells you what grade level your copy is at. And so immediately I saw that, the standard was a 4th grade level. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And yeah, I threw this classic 8th grade test from 1895 in the chat box. I don't know if you could download it or not. I'm happy to send it out again. But that's how far we have been dumbed down. I don't know if you guys have read Charlotte Iserbyt's book called The Dumbing Down of America. And it's fantastic. I've got a copy. I'll throw it in the chat if anybody's interested as well. She was the Undersecretary of Education in the 80s, and she chronicled the decline and went so far as to say that it was a systematic every decade, to the point where, I was high school class of 85. So, I was sort of I always talk about how I feel like I was on this cusp of, learning about the evils of socialism and communism. And at the same time, learning about how great, it was to be communal and one world, Bob Marley and all that kind of stuff. So very interesting to sort of watch the progression or devolution, if you would, of our education system. So I don't think you're off base with that. I think when it comes to marketing and sales, right, that's, I understand, the I'm not going to talk down to my customers or whatever it is. But I think on the other hand, if you want to reach the most amount of people, right, we have to cater our verbiage so that we don't turn people off or come off as exclusive or whatever. I don't know. That's just a thought. You guys hit a lot of the key points, so good stuff. I like that they called it a premium soap, right? Because it was sudsy and all that. But they said it was easy. He said it was easy to adopt a product, and I'll say a habit, like you were saying, that had a strong sensory experience. They used words like fresh taste, clean mouth, right? And then he starts getting into like some advertising stuff. And he was talking about Wrigley, and like, I'm not a gum guy, but when he said juicy fruit, all of a sudden my mouth started watering, right? Like, that's the only gum that I ever liked as a kid. And I hate gum, but if somebody, I don't even know where you could find juicy fruit anywhere today, but if somebody handed me a stick of juicy fruit, I'd be like,
it's in supermarkets. Yeah.
Oh man, I'll have to.
Yeah.
No, I don't like gum, but I did like, I did like the juicy fruit. And then honestly, like, it kind of took me to the flip side of that, and the darker side of marketing and PR and advertising, and how those same techniques that, we use in terms of, understanding psychology and human behavior, is also at the root of marketing and PR. And if you guys know about Edward Bernays and the father of public relations, he was Sigmund Freud's nephew. And he took all of the kind of tenets of psychology and all that research and essentially turned it into, how can we use the way people's brains work to sell them, laundry soap. Or his famous campaign was to get women to smoke as under the pretense of, feminism and girl power, and, you're a strong woman, smoke these cigarettes and all that stuff. Quote from Bernays: "The manipulation of the habits and opinions of the masses is an important mechanism in a democratic society." Think about that. So we've gone from selling people dish soap and Ovaltine or whatever I'm thinking of like all the old black and white, newspaper ads before there was television or even radio, to the marketing of ideologies, right? And I think, again, that dark path that, to a large degree, I could look at where we are today in society, and you can trace a lot of that back to kind of using our own brain physiology against us, right? Very interesting. What is rewarded is repeated. What is punished is avoided. Positive emotions cultivate habits. Negative emotions destroy them. The first three laws are about encouraging us in the present. The fourth law is about encouraging our actions in the future. Animals can only focus on the present or the very near future. And he called that an immediate return environment. Whereas in modern society, as you guys were saying, right, that delayed gratification, he called it a delayed return environment. To me, that's just the concept of it's a lot of what I think you've talked about with us from the beginning, John, with this concept of you do the work first and then the rewards come, right? It's like right out of Earl Nightingale, or whatever. You can't expect to get the payoff unless you put the time and the energy and the hard work in. And I think that's true with whatever it is, whether it's habits or just, personal development or whatever. You don't immediately become that person. You got to put the time and energy into becoming that person and acting as if, right? And doing the right thing, doing the thing.
Can I jump in on that?
Yeah, please.
Because something Bob said it was the second chapter we read this week. So chapter 16, he made reference to let's say you miss a day. You didn't show up in the gym. Don't miss two, right? Because even if it's a crappy workout, it's the identity that we're building. It may not be, wow, I just did the best muscle building workout ever, but I showed up. So it's the who that we're developing, not just the what. That's what I'm hearing when we're going with what you're saying right there. And I could tell you for myself, that has been so valuable, because even if I'm like not feeling 100% or whatever, but I missed yesterday, there's no way I'm missing today.
What do you say? You miss once and it's a mistake. You miss twice and it's the start of a new habit.
Yes.
There it is.
Yeah.
I like that.
But that's about who you are, right? Not that, oh, look, I did a spectacular workout or whatever.
Well,
Right.
And so much of this is about, what kind of person do you want to be? Do you want to be the kind of person that misses a workout? Do you want to be the kind of person that never misses a workout? I mean, he talked about Seinfeld and not breaking the streak, right?
Yeah.
And doesn't matter if it's a good joke or a bad joke or a show about nothing or whatever it was that he did, but the concept of just write a joke every day or whatever it is, or Margaret Cho or whatever he was talking about did something similar like that. And I feel that in my life where if you get on a habit of doing something every day, maybe at first you're like, yeah, first day doing the new thing, yeah, second day doing the new thing. After 6 months, you're not like, yeah, 79 days of doing the thing or whatever, right? It just becomes a part of your identity, right? And that's what he talks about, is like when habits become part of your identity, then it's this reinforcement loop where it just is who you are and you just do it, right? And I'm sure that we all have, and that works both ways, right? And I think, Missy, when you were talking about, what did you call those? Avoidance
Make it
habits?
difficult, not visible, and
Like habits of avoidance, where he was talking about the things that you're trying not to do, and they become more about not suppression. I'll have to keep looking, but it was this concept of you're trying to not do the thing, and it's a very different process than trying to cultivate a new habit. At least it's what it sounded like to me.
Well, it's like kind of cleaning up the mess in a way, to stop doing what has been bad. But, I'm starting to, it makes me think of Neville Goddard all the time when you say, you got to do the work, you got to do it. Even if you do it the Neville Goddard way, you have to put in that mental work. And that's harder than me doing the push-ups against the wall. Even I'm in bed with all the lights out and I find it difficult to concentrate. But when you talk about getting to like the 79th day, he says, what does he say? Something like go to bed and assume the state or something. By 79 days, you have assumed the state. You're there. It's who you are. But he just has a shorter cut version of doing it. And I still like his way. You want a building? You don't have any money? Very well. Just go to sleep in the building. That takes a lot of work.
It does.
He was an expert and he could help other people do it, but it's doable, but it's harder than doing push-ups against the wall.
Do you like his I Want to Be in Barbados story? Do you know that one where he was in the army?
Yes.
Yes.
And he would be in his apartment
And he went to
he
bed every night, right? And dream
touched
that he
the
was in
walls,
Barbados.
at the
right?
window. Yes.
Absolutely. The cost of good habits are in the present. The cost of bad habits are in the future, right?
Yeah,
Those
that's key. That one of my favorite lines. If you're going to quote Bastiat, "You're on my good side forever." When he said that, quoted Bastiat, it almost always happens that when the immediate consequences is favorable, the later consequences are disastrous, and vice versa. Often, the sweeter the first fruit of a habit, the more bitter are its later fruits.
Ooh.
I like that. And then he says, the more immediate the pleasure, the more strongly we should question if it aligns with our long-term goals.
Yes.
I thought that was very cool.
I can't let you go much further, Stuart, without going back a little bit, because when you were speaking maybe 2-3 minutes ago, you kept using the word new. And, we have become so habituated to novelty that we're always looking for something that will break the monotony. We're afraid of doing something a second time because we've already done it. What's the saying? Been there, done that. And, to build habits requires a lot of monotony, And, it maybe, there are you get that first flush of a rush of
Dopamine, baby,
anticipation and a feeling of accomplishment, but then that wears off very quickly and you're off to the next one.
Isn't that the problem with our modern society? We're thinking about what's for dessert while we're eating dinner, right? And we're thinking about we're in this
Programming. That's what it is.
cultural loop of like you're never satisfied in the moment, right? That's really the deal. Is we're always looking for the next thing, or what you're talking about is like that, keeping up with the Joneses or the next new thing. I've got an iPhone 6 from 10 years ago or whatever the hell it is, and I refuse really. And I'm at the point, honestly, I'm at the point now where a lot of the apps aren't working and things like that, and they make it that way. But even the concept of planned obsolescence in manufacturing, right?
Yes.
So that you gotta get the new thing because the old thing doesn't work anymore or whatever. I agree. The road less traveled is the road of delayed gratification. There are some real gems in this one I liked. And for me, what did he say? And this one hit me because of what I do. The last mile is the least crowded.
Yes.
Some of you guys would appreciate that. Maybe Lindsay, who runs in the forest and things like that. But yeah, for me, like hiking, thanks for chiming in. When I'm out on the trail, it's always the first couple miles that are the most crowded, and all the dog walkers and all the local people, whatever. You get past about that 2 or 3 mile mark, and then all of a sudden you don't see anybody, and all of a sudden the birds are out in the trees and the deer runs out across the trail, or, you know, whatever it is, right? And maybe that's that, you know, what's easy is what most people do. I'll even make another outdoor analogy there. 5% of our trail systems are utilized by 95% of visitors to public lands. So everybody goes to Grand Canyon or Yosemite or Arches or wherever, and they all take the one little loop around the visitor center. They all take that one little trail, and the rest of it's wide open, right? And maybe there's an analogy there in terms of business and marketing, right? And of course there is, right? If you take that road less traveled, there's less competition, and it's wide open for you to you know, claim your space or whatever you want.
I have a question about that, Stuart, and for the group. Okay, so before you traveled beyond the little nature trail, because I know the nature trail, every trailhead has one, right? Well, not every trailhead, but you get the point, right? So I'm going to go, let's say right here in Phoenix, right? Camelback Mountain, which is pretty treacherous, right? In fact, there's even warning signs. This is considered extreme. All right, you're going to be going up, and so, but you know, you can get on the trail a little bit. You could always turn back, but then there's like this little loop, right? And grandma can walk around the loop, you know, look at the rocks and whatever, and then get the hell out of there, right? But had I never gone past the nature trail, I would have never known. We're talking about make it satisfying, right? I would have never known how satisfying it is at the summit. So what is the initial, because if we're looking at new habits, like right, Bob is talking about new, you know, endeavors and what have you, what's the initial carrot? I've got to be able to think beyond the nature trail. I've got to see the summit. Maybe just seeing that there is a summit, maybe just recognizing that there is a summit. There's less people up there, by the way, you know, but so that I guess the question that's coming up for me is, what drove me to now be somebody who always wants to get to the summit, right? And not just
maybe
walk
isn't
around
it like the 2 minute, the concept of the 2 minute rule or whatever he's saying, or the gateway habit, right? So you take the nature trail, and then that sort of opens you up to the possibilities that there's other things. If you like this, maybe you're really going to like that.
Okay.
I don't know. That's a thought.
There you go. So that's maybe here's a little taste, right? And for the dilettante, okay, now we're talking about creating habits, but for the person who doesn't have, you know, a drive to, you know, reach the summit, so to speak, maybe that suffices. Although, as what we've just been discussing here, you know, the path of least resistance, or if it's pleasing now with little to no effort, well, is that actually serving my purposes? I guess there it is then. I just said it. It just came out of my mouth. It's having a bigger purpose. Without that, walk the nature trail or not, whatever. There's the parking lot. You can leave. Right? I guess that's what it comes down to, is how big is your purpose? What do you guys think? Is that it?
I agree with you 1,000%. And it is amazing to me that I can see in myself. Usually you don't see change in yourself in such a short amount of time. From the first day I met you in late end of June or something like that. And it took knowing you and listening to you and going back. I've got the Joseph Murphy's book, the one you said the other day, you know, it's sitting right in there. And I talk to my books. John Adams used to talk to his books, used to talk to the authors in the marginalia and tell them they were stupid. But I've got all this stuff written in there, but I couldn't make it stick until I came to this. And it's not about mugs. It's not about the store. It's not about the money. It's about the personal development. And I want the money. I want the mugs to sell. And, you know, it is just, it's healing me, even physiologically. It's taken a long time, but I have to, you know, that's delayed gratification is very hard to deal with. But Bob, you do see change in me, right?
Well, yeah, and we were just talking about this yesterday too, because, let's not lose sight of the title of this book and the whole premise. It's Atomic Habits. It's making small changes. And, the 1% incremental increase compounds over time. So therefore, you have to get yourself into a virtuous cycle and get rid of the bad habits and replace them with the good habits. And then everything since that first chapter has just been building on and amplifying this theme of getting rid of the bad habits, replacing them with the good habits, and the method and means of doing so. Again, that's a long-winded answer to your question. Yes, I have seen it. I have seen, these small incremental changes, but I also felt the need to encourage you to hang on to the small victories that you have won during the course of a day.
But I'm a baby boomer. I want everything done in a half hour, like a sitcom. So I had to grow past that, I want Mr. Brady to come in and tell me I did a good job, But listen, what he said, he told his on TV, he said, find what it is that you do best and do your best at it. And that was on a sitcom, but that is exactly what I'm doing. Mr. Brady told me, and I'm doing it. And
John's talked to us a lot about celebrating the little victories, and I think it's really important what you just said there, Bob. And Missy, do you have a hard time sort of giving yourself a pat on the back for the small victories?
I'll answer for her, yes.
I've been unwell for such a long time that I don't even remember what it feels like to be normal. So, but yes, I'm stupidly hard on myself, but that's changing.
Your pats on the back are frequent and forceful and too low.
My pats on the back?
Yes.
I pat myself on the back?
Yeah, they are too frequent.
That means I'm bragging about myself.
No, listen to the whole thing. There's a joke in here. Stuart's got it already. All right. They are too frequent, they are too forceful, and they are too low on your back.
Oh, I see. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha.
The secret to raising good children, someone said many years ago, is to pat them on the back frequently, forcefully, and low.
As my grandmother would say in Yiddish, "Patschke on the tuchas." Okay, understood.
That was very good. What is
We have a linguist here.
Can I drop a couple more things?
Yeah. And then I'd love to open it up. It is open. Anybody else who has some ideas?
Lindsay, you got something to say? I see your face now. I don't want to take up all the time.
No, you're fine. I'm finishing cooking dinner, so I'm listening. But
Nice.
I've got a
What's for dinner, Lindsay?
chili.
Nice.
Yeah, it's cold here now.
Habit trackers. I thought that was an interesting concept, right? Lindsay, you got a Fitbit or an Apple Watch? There it is. Habit trackers, right? Interesting concept, right? I'm a list guy. Maybe that's just old school or whatever. But putting stuff on your calendar and Xing it off, right? There's a certain visual satisfaction with that, right? You get the double hit of crossing it off and seeing it crossed off. I'm a list guy. I got lots of lists. I got a list for every aspect of my life. I got master lists, and home and ranch and business and llamas and this and that and whatever. And, on any given day, I go through and I'm like, okay, done on this one, done on this one. So I could relate to that. I tried with some apps. There's plenty of cool apps out there, list apps, all different stuff. For me, I don't know, there's maybe adding another tactile sensation, right? The more senses we involve in an activity, the more ingrained it becomes, right? So, you can write something down and that's kind of, you're writing it, you're looking at it, but if you read it, right, affirmations, things like that, if you involve more senses, then I think the more you incorporate those things into your body. But yeah, he was saying, that's what he said. Habit trackers leverage multiple laws of behavior and just the act of tracking the habit sometimes becomes its own reward. I thought that was pretty cool. And then he like gives us a little smack in the face with, we have a distorted view of our behavior. And that we think that we do more, or we think we act better than we do. And I don't know what I'm sure that there's a lot of analogies there. John smiling. What do you think about that?
Well, this just came up last week in general session. We were talking about self-assessment and getting honest with ourselves to see what the actual patterns are that we're doing, and rationalization, right? And well, I did really good, that time. That was actually last week. I haven't done it since, right? So the whole idea of resting on our laurels, so to speak, could be part of it. Yeah.
Well, and then that goes into the accountability partners, and I hadn't even heard of that concept until I joined the Success Mastermind with you last April. Mm-hmm. And almost immediately, there were people that were forming little groups. Like, hey, you want to be my accountability partner? And like, there were several people that were, even reached out to me. Hey, you want to be accountability partner? And, of course, my wife was like, no, you're my accountability partner or whatever. Right. So, Leah and I, we got to keep each other in line and all that. She's like, I don't need you going off on some other group. We have to be accountable to each other. Right. And maybe you guys can relate a little bit to that. But this concept, and this is where like there was some truth for me too, was that when you start tracking habits, then it can feel like even more of a challenge, because then not only do you got to do the thing, but then you got to track doing the thing. And honestly, there's a part of me that feels like with all the formulas, and I'm really loving this book, don't get me wrong. But I feel like, at least for me, in the way that I am, I know that I'm not going to necessarily, incorporate all these formulas of, oh, do this, then do that. Like if it comes naturally, or if it's just something that I feel like is, whatever, the spoonful of sugar or whatever you were talking about earlier, Bob, and just the concept of making it satisfying. But I don't know if anybody else feels this way, but at a certain point I'm reading this and I'm like, oh my God, it's like math equations, and like, if this, then that, this, that, do this, if that, if I get to do this, then I get to do, like, I don't think that's how I really work, but I'm glad to sort of, it's kind of like anything else in my life. Like, I feel like I'm grateful to be exposed to the concepts and grasp those concepts. And if anything sticks, and then I incorporate it into my path, right? Is anybody else feeling that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and this is just for me, but I sometimes wonder about, we were talking about the dumbing down and how intelligent, children in the 1800s were versus me. I saw that thing that you posted. I'm like, I don't know the answers to most of those things. And do I need to? I guess is the other question, right? Does that serve me in my modern life? So then the consideration is, all right, in modern times, at the pace with which things change and with at which decisions need to be made, do we even have the luxury, or is it just me deluding myself to try and be that, dogmatic or that habituated with it? Do I also have to balance this with spontaneity, which has not been my strong suit? I mean, I can do one thing over and over and over again, which, some people would consider monotonous. However, if it's fruitful, like the rat sticking its head through the thing to get the little dopamine hit, right? Okay, let's do the dopamine thing, man. Sign me up, right? I don't have to think so much. I could just get the hit. So I'm looking for, for myself, and maybe it's just an excuse. And maybe you're making an excuse right now, Stuart, is like, well, I don't know if I need to go through all that. All right, so does that mean I don't have a good enough reason, so the purpose isn't big enough? Or does that mean, you know what? It's 2021. We're in clown world, bizarro madhouse land right now. Okay. So like what I'm doing, what I say I'm willing to do is quite good. In fact, it's better than 99% of, good enough, Stuart. Right. So which one is it? I don't know. Maybe a bit of both.
I agree. I mean, I put in the chat there that, I mean, to me, there's got to be room for flow, right? There's got to be room for this
Yes.
intuitive sort of, finding, being in the zone, right? And more of what Dorothea Brand was talking about and getting into that work environment. I think I don't know if it's, what's the analogy, talking it to death, or, over systemizing something or whatever, and again, I'm all about the systems and I think it's great, but yeah, I'm kind of where you are with this. And I think maybe we would all agree, like, I'm not going to go out, whereas maybe I might subscribe myself to Napoleon Hill's 13 principles, or I might, incorporate, many of Goddard's manifesting techniques, because those things feel natural to me. And maybe that's the thing. If it's, there's a zillion ways to get to the place, and we're all a little bit different. And maybe for some people, that really disciplined kind of ABCD, follow this, do this, do this, do this, that's what they want, or that's what they need. I tend to be a little bit more of a hybrid kind of person in the way that I do things. I tend to be a little more unorthodox in the way I do everything, including business, right? And that's worked for me.
Stuart, you're actually segueing into something that he referred to as non-scale victories. Okay, because sometimes you do fall in love with the measured and quantified goal that you set for yourself, and you may not hit that goal, but you've got something else. He mentions, for example, the number on the scale. If you're losing weight, may be stubborn. You solely focus on that number, your motivational sag, but you may notice that your skin looks better, or you wake up earlier, or you've got more definition to your muscles. Okay, the number on the scale hasn't moved, but you've got a victory somewhere else.
Wasn't sex drive in there somewhere too? I think it was.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I
Don't
must have missed
neglect
that.
the details.
I thought this was a G-rated session. So, but
He's from Jersey. He doesn't know.
Well, and so maybe he's making a disclaimer, Bob. That's like, okay, here's all this stuff, but don't get lost. The process is more important than the result, but don't get lost in the process either, right?
Right. Because sometimes there are things that come out of the blue that you can actually latch on to. As just mentioned earlier, I told Missy, look for something, as you look back on the day or look back on the hour, whenever your measuring period is, you had to have some victory somewhere. You had to have something that, motivated you. No day is a complete washout. There's always something you can grab hold of. So
well, maybe that's the punchline for all this. Now that we're through the book, we got one more week on it with the advanced stuff he's going to talk with us about, which I'm intrigued by. But maybe that's the punchline, is that, you know what, you guys who read this book, you're doing good. I mean, this book is, the people who need to read this didn't read it, right? So, well done, Stuart. So thanks for reading the book, as you were, sir, as you were. Right.
No, I think we're obviously here not only in the mastermind, but we're here on these book studies because we are studying, right? We are on a path of personal development and success, right? And so yeah, I get that, and at the same time, if we didn't pick this book, or if we didn't read this book, there's a lot of these techniques and concepts that I wouldn't even be wondering about whether or not I could incorporate into my path, right? And again, I think we all have our own way, and maybe the people that are already there, or whatever that is, if you're ever already there, they got their own way of doing things too, and maybe they write their own books, or they don't need this guy's method, right? Everybody's got a method, right? So I don't know. I like, John, what'd you think about when he said, don't put up a zero? I kind of thought of you,
Mhm.
that too, right? That, and maybe that goes back to is like, if you're not doing it, then you're going backwards, or that
Mhm.
concept of the gradual 1% increase a day. But, if you don't do anything, you're putting up a zero.
Well, that one concept, I think, and I'm not going to speak for Lindsay, but Lindsay's here with us right now. That one concept of getting off of zero, I think, had a profound impact on Lindsay's production. And again, Lindsay, you can correct me if that isn't, a factor, or that wasn't impactful. I don't know. But when I kind of witnessed Lindsay embracing that idea, her statistics, they went up, right? I cannot abide a zero. I will not tolerate zeros, right? So
Doesn't make a
how
difference.
quickly can I see something other than zero? What time is it right now? Right?
Pepper flips all day. I will do that. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, get off at zero. It does.
Right. And it's not a new truth or something. We're just talking about overcoming procrastination, inertia, whatever. I don't care whatever words you want to use. The point is to produce something. Because, as Stuart said, nothing rests. We're creating or disintegrating. So choose.
Can we talk about the presidential codes for a minute? Because that was like a little
Oh,
disturbing.
that was
right?
fun. Yeah,
Oh
let's
my
wrap up
God.
with that. That was a bloody mess, huh?
Oh, boy.
Missy, did you catch that? Right, the concept of the president, has the nuke codes or whatever, and it's too easy. I mean, this concept has even come up both with the last president and this president, right? That power is too much to be in one hand or whatever it is, and that the president should have an aide with them all the time with the codes implanted in their chest, and if the president wants to, enter the codes, he's got to cut the guy's heart out.
Yes. That way he can see the blood. The blood will literally be on his hands. That you press the button, you give the code, and half a world away, there's going to be mass destruction. You never see it. It's completely out of sight, out of mind. But if you see one person having to suffer for your decision, it makes you think twice about taking it.
That reminds me, just that concept of sort of modern warfare, right? And of course, we're moving towards drones, and we're already there, but automated, autonomous drones that can make kill decisions without a human, being involved in that. I think the Air Force said by, another few years, we'll have an entirely robotic military or fighting force and things like that. And this concept of not seeing the blood or not seeing the white of their eyes or whatever, and as brutal and barbaric as it was in the past to have 10,000 idiots with sharp things running at each other across a field, there was a certain consequence or a certain understanding, whether you talk about Bushido and the samurai and that, code of honor or whatever it is. Over the years, I've had several drone pilots. Here in New Mexico, we have Holloman Air Force Base, which is one of the homes of the drone pilots. And so I've had many, many drone pilots on my wilderness trips. And it's just interesting, I've had talks with some of these folks about, I'm like, so where are you when you're flying drones over Iraq or Afghanistan or whatever? They're like, yeah, I'm right here in my apartment or whatever. It's like, to me, that's a little scary, right?
Yeah.
It's horrifying.
It's like a video game. You can just, log on, whatever, you're, 50,000 miles away from something or whatever it is. And
Yes, they didn't see the Terminator, how that ends up. So
they all end bad. All those scenarios end bad.
I think that's an important consideration, because what we were just talking about here with the idea of, the person who would launch the missiles actually has to, kill somebody to get the codes or whatever. there is a concept that if technology outpaces spirituality, then the world's in trouble. And there's some people who say that, this wouldn't be the first time. This wouldn't be the first time, right? So where are we headed with all this? And not that we're going to cite Terminator movies as prescient of here's what's about to happen. Although
It's gonna,
yeah.
we do apocalypse.
So can we, I guess here we are, right, having conversations about, rightful, right living and working with principles in our lives and all that. So probably we're not the people that need the message, but nor do I want to take that for granted. Okay. But I think perhaps the fruit of having read this book, and we're going to wrap it up next week, and we're going to have to make a decision this week about what book is next. And it's either going to be Neville Goddard or Joe Murphy or Napoleon Hill, Outwitting the Devil. I'm not sure, so I'm open to suggestions. But the idea that we've taken the time to learn how to be more deliberate in our habit forming is laudable. I'm thinking probably for most people, if not everyone in this group, perhaps rather than introspecting so much on that, maybe how can we help children or other people who maybe haven't taken the effort? Look, I've invited lots of people to join us in these conversations. Most of them aren't here, right? So what can you do? If nothing else, be a good example. Okay. But when people come to us now that we're armed with this data, with this information, when people come to us, frustrated or needing counsel or whatever, can we be that rock that they can, come and get some instruction and actually take it, not because you're an authority or an authoritarian, God forbid, but just that you've become that rock, that shining example. And I think in my world, and this isn't self-aggrandizing, it's just what I've noticed for myself. It's because I've been consistent to whatever degree I have been with high integrity actions, I've been able to occur in the lives of others, like people who counsel with me on business matters and such, as a trusted advisor, Now that also translates, by the way, into business, obviously, right? If you've got someone who, let's say somebody comes to, Janet, and she is their trusted advisor when it comes to doing aesthetic, calligraphy type, making cards or something. Okay. Does that not also translate into them exchanging with Janet and saying, yes, sell me the calligraphy class now? Of course it does. Right. So there is the hidden fruit, maybe not immediate or apparent to everyone here at the moment, but the more solid you become as a principled and on purpose person, the more attractive you become to your customer.
Bingo.
So, yeah.
To myself.
Yeah, there you go. So I love you guys. Any closing thoughts on these chapters? No? Okay, well, I've got one right here. He just wants to say hi real quick. Hey, come hang out with us. It's Butch. Hi, Butch.
Oh,
How you doing, Butch?
Does he have body armor on?
He's so
He's
cute.
got a drag bag. He had to have a leg removed, one of his hind legs, and he pees all over himself and stuff. So he's got a diaper and a drag bag so he can drag his ass around. And all right, buddy.
John, I like this book. I like the habits. I'm going to be going through it more slowly because I just need to absorb more. But I also see it from a teaching standpoint. If I'm going to motivate my students to, to stay in it, to keep working, to get better, because practice makes better. So I think some of these things I can use. I can say, okay, what can I do to make it more pleasurable for them, to make, to give them some kind of feedback? What can I give them that will give them the kind of feedback that will want them to keep going with it? So whether as a teacher or an imparter of knowledge or a motivator in any way, maybe I can take these these things and say, okay, here's some good thoughts, make that chewing gum more tasty. I'm sure that your bath bombs are, they smell good. They make your skins feel soft, so you're giving pleasure. It's just so that's Stuart's business. So these are all things that I think I'm really glad I have this book, and I'm glad that I'm using it. And like I said, I have to go back slower, but all of my little tabs on all of the books and all of the pages, and today I said, well, I'm going to write things down rather than just try to go through when we're talking. But no, I've appreciated this book a lot. I will go back through it. All of our books, really. I just need to absorb them at a different rate. Yeah, but thank you so much.
Thank you, Janet. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, being here with us. Read the rest of the book, and we'll cover it next week. And then we'll have a decision this week on what book is next. So love you guys. Thanks for being here. Bring a friend next week. I'll see you soon. Bye for now.